They called it the duel of precision. 12 systems tuned in. The council wanted proof that humanity's age had ended, that flesh could no longer match the perfection of machine-assisted sight. I was there to document, neutral and unblinking, when the contestants stepped into the ring. The Varkon marksman glistened under the lights. Armor of gold filaments, eyes like molten amber. Every movement calculated, rehearsed, logged. He flexed his clawed fingers around the pulse rifle, letting the crowd drink in his confidence. "Show me human skill," he said, the words sharp as static. Opposite him stood Mara Keene, human, female, fragile by every known metric. No implants, no optics. Her weapon was old, coil-fed, single trigger. Her stance unremarkable. Yet something in the way she exhaled unsettled even the recorders. It was not arrogance. It was stillness. The range extended beyond sight, a horizon of targets glimmering like dust. Spectators murmured, trading credits on her failure. Machines adjusted for wind, gravity, drift. She adjusted for nothing. The signal tone rang. The Varkon fired first. 3 bolts in half a second. Beautiful arcs of plasma crossing vacuum, each one perfect. The crowd erupted, assured of the outcome before the data even registered. She didn't move. Not yet. Seconds passed, each heavier than the last. Her pulse steady, her breath measured. She raised her weapon as though the act were a ritual older than war. Then came the shot. It wasn't loud. A whisper of thunder, a single flash. Her bolt met his mid-flight, 2 lines of energy colliding in a brief starburst. The resulting detonation bloomed silently in the upper atmosphere, 2 perfections canceling each other. Silence fell. Even the monitors stuttered. Calculations failed. Probability fractured. The Varkon lowered his weapon, disbelief etched in every motion. "Impossible," he hissed. Mara's reply was almost kind. "No," she said. "Just human." She holstered the rifle, turning away before applause could find its courage. Around her, every race watched the replay. Again and again, the human bolt dividing the alien's shot, as though dissecting arrogance itself. I recorded every frame. I was meant to study form, not meaning. But as I replayed the moment, I realized her precision wasn't mechanical. It was emotional, anchored in intent, not calibration. Later, analysts called it luck. Others whispered conspiracy. None could explain the serenity on her face, or how her hand remained steady after rewriting physics in public. When the broadcast ended, the arena stayed quiet. The Varkon delegation refused interviews. The council sealed the data. But the people had already decided. Across 12 systems, one phrase trended in unison. "Show me human skill." It no longer sounded like mockery. I logged my report that evening, voice trembling though I did not understand why. "Observation," I dictated. "Humans lack augmentation, yet their flaw produces something unquantifiable. Perhaps faith, perhaps defiance." Before I closed the record, I added one final line. The galaxy believed precision was perfection. Today, it learned precision can bleed. They said it was only curiosity, observation, routine analysis after an anomaly. But we all knew the truth. It was fear. The duel's data had spread like contagion. 12 systems had witnessed it. 12 systems now questioned everything the Council of Precision had ever claimed about the superiority of design. So they sent me back, to monitor, to measure, to dissect. Lieutenant Mara Keene became a living equation to be solved. She lived in a small orbital suite above Helios Station. No guards, no augmentations, just a table, a weapon, and silence. Every moment was logged. Her breathing cycles, her heartbeat under rest, her gaze fixation duration. The numbers refused to explain her. "Statistical anomaly," one analyst said, waving a holographic chart. "Primitive luck," another sneered. I said nothing. I had seen her fire. You do not explain the ocean by measuring drops. For 3 days, they ran her through simulations. Moving targets, light shifts, environmental interference. Each test designed to trap her humanity in quantifiable error. Each failure predicted with confidence. but she never failed. Her aim didn't adjust. It anticipated. The recording showed her eyes not following but knowing, like she felt the pulse of wind through unseen nerves, like the target had confessed its next motion to her. On the fourth day, the Varkon delegation arrived. Their pride demanded spectacle. Controlled verification, they called it. The council approved. To them it was proof she would break under impossible parameters. When Mara entered the chamber, she carried no fear, no arrogance, only focus. "This isn't verification," she murmured to me as I recorded. "It's revenge dressed in paperwork." They programmed the field with chaos. Gravity shifted between pulses. Winds inverted without warning. Optical distortions bent light until even the monitors lost track of truth. Probability approached zero, she smiled. "You can't code intuition." Then she drew. The first bolt crossed the simulation in absolute silence. The second followed, threading the first's residual wake. By the fifth, the system lagged. It could not keep pace with what it refused to believe possible. The last target shattered before the program finished rendering it. 10 shots. 1 breath. Every hit exact. The command hub fell quiet. Algorithms began to crash under paradox, inputs that defied causality. The engineers whispered about interference. The Varkon envoy stood rigid, his scaled hands tightening behind his back. "She's using hidden tech," he spat. Mara unloaded her weapon, set it on the table, and folded her hands. "If I am," she said, "it's called practice." Her pulse remained steady. Mine did not. When the data review began, the council tried to replicate her pattern. They fed her motion into predictive models. The results fractured into nonsense, ghost trajectories, overlapping timestamps, missing vectors. "It doesn't compute," muttered the lead technician. "It's not supposed to," I replied. That night I stayed behind to review the raw footage, frame by frame. Each movement carried rhythm, not randomness, like she heard music the rest of us couldn't. She was not reacting. She was conversing with the laws of motion. At 0300, the simulation core failed. Overload. The system literally froze, unable to process her firing logic. Screens dimmed one by one, as though conceding defeat. I wrote my report carefully. Subject displays pattern beyond quantification. Recommend continued observation. But before I submitted it, I added a single line, one I knew the council would strike. The error is not in the code. It is in the assumption that perfection is mechanical. I closed the file. In the reflection of the terminal glass, I saw my own eyes trembling. Not with fear, with recognition. Humans were not precise because they removed error. They were precise because they embraced it. And in that paradox lay something more terrifying than perfection. It was freedom. They came like vultures to a battlefield that hadn't finished cooling. The mercenary. Kings arrived first, fat with coin and confidence. Then the sponsors, their banners gleaming with corporate crests. Then the empires smelling profit in precision. They called it the human phenomenon. Channels flooded with headlines, wagers, interviews. Every network wanted her trigger finger on their broadcast. Every army wanted her doctrine stamped with their logo. Mara refused them all. "Skill isn't for sale," she said. Simple. Final. But refusal is an act of war when greed runs an empire. The offers turned to demands. The demands turned to pressure. Someone somewhere decided to remind humanity of its place. They targeted a colony, a teaching outpost orbiting Nereth's moon. Population, 167. Half of them children. Official statement. Weapons test, misfire. The feed leaked anyway. I watched the transmission in real time. Firelight bloomed against vacuum, silent, colorless. Then the emergency pods ruptured, oxygen masks scattering into the void like white petals torn from invisible stems. The silence after was worse than the images. The galaxy watched innocence drift unanchored. The broadcast cut to black. That night Mara vanished from her quarters. Her ID beacon deactivated at 0200. The council ordered her detained for questioning. None could find her. At dawn, Helios 9 went dark. Sensors across the sector registered localized EMP bursts, then radio silence. The orbital range, largest military installation this side of the belt, ceased transmitting. The Council panicked. The Varkon accused sabotage. I accessed the black box footage hours later, unofficially. The recording was grainy, soundless. Smoke rolled across the hangar decks. Through it, she walked. Not fast, not slow. Measured. Calculated. Every camera she passed froze for half a second, as if the machines themselves hesitated to witness. Her movements were surgical. Disable, disarm, neutralize. I counted 40 hostiles, none dead. Every weapon she touched turned inert. Coils melted, safeties fused. Every power core shut down seconds before detonation. No rage, no chaos, just inevitability. By the time response teams arrived, the entire range lay silent. No casualties, no survivors among the aggressors' command hierarchy either. They had been evacuated minutes earlier, straight into the trajectory of their own automated drones. The system recognized their signals as hostile. It was too efficient to question. Later, someone recovered a single transmission broadcast across all encrypted bands. Human response, proportional. No demand, no threat, just balance, stated and executed. The message spread faster than fear. Empires replayed it with cautionary subtitles. The mercenary networks deleted their offers. The sponsors went quiet. Even the Varkon Strategist Corps issued a statement acknowledging strategic recalibration in light of human unpredictability. Mara didn't reappear. Only results did. 3 pirate lords surrendered entire fleets overnight. 2 slave auctions imploded from inside. Their systems hacked, their profits rerouted to refugee colonies. Every move precise, untraceable, unmistakably human. The observers whispered that she had become myth. The soldiers whispered something else. They called her the children's recoil, because she no longer fought for contracts or causes. She fought for the echo of breath lost in vacuum. I reviewed the footage one last time before the council locked it away. In one frame, between static bursts, her eyes met the lens. Calm. Certain. It struck me then, this was not vengeance. It was calibration. Humanity's correction of imbalance, rendered through discipline sharper than any blade. The report I filed that night was brief. Event classified as proportional retaliation. 0 unintended casualties. But in my private log I wrote, they mistook recoil for reaction. It is not. It is memory, and humanity remembers precisely. The stars had not dimmed, but the galaxy moved as though the light itself carried shame. Empires convened emergency summits across the spiral arm. 47 systems arguing over one woman's definition of justice. Humans have violated engagement protocol, they declared, as if the phrase could reassemble what had burned. But the protocols had died with the children of Nereth's moon, and in that silence, the machine order of the galaxy felt its first tremor of guilt. I was chosen to attend the tribunal as an observer, neutral, uninvolved. I told myself I believed that. The chamber of the High Council was vast, tiered seats, silver walls, and a dome that reflected every delegate's face like 1,000 eyes watching themselves. When she entered, the air changed. Lieutenant Mara Keene walked without guard or escort. Her uniform was still scorched, the soot of Helios 9 dark against the pale of her sleeves. The marks were not cleaned away. They were testimony. The Varkon delegate rose, his scales flickering gold with contempt. "You presume to lecture the civilized races on ethics," he hissed. "Protection by annihilation?" She looked at him, not up, not down, just through. "Retribution," she said, "by precision." A pause rippled across the chamber. I felt it like pressure behind the eyes. The words carried weight, not volume. The council chair leaned forward. "You stand accused of disproportionate retaliation. The destruction of military assets valued at 0 civilian casualties," she interrupted. "Every target confirmed hostile, every strike contained. If you call that disproportionate, then your scale is broken." Her tone was not defiance. It was arithmetic. They replayed the footage for judgment. Helios 9, the range consumed by light. I had seen it before, yet the silence around it was new. No chaos, no screaming. Each blast a clean incision. The operation was not violence, it was calibration. This was not war, the chair said. No, Mara answered. It was correction. Murmurs swelled. Delegates muttered about arrogance, human exceptionalism, unpredictability. Yet beneath their words lived unease. For the first time, perfection's defenders faced a species that fought not for conquest but consequence. The Council, the Varkon pressed, is not a moral court. It is a system of law. Then the system should behave lawfully, she replied. If the machine cannot feel guilt, it must fear consequence. That line would echo for centuries. Even now historians recite it as doctrine. But that day, it fell like a blade. The chair struck the dais. Enough! Humanity is sanctioned. All human colonies are to surrender their defense grids. Their fleets are to be grounded pending review. Silence held. Then, a sound I had never heard before. A chorus of voices from the lower tiers. The representatives of border worlds, independent stations, the quiet colonies. One by one they rose. We recognize the doctrine of response, said the delegate from Erathis. Prime. So do we, added the envoy from the mining rings of Var. Helios 9 was justice, said another. The council's authority fractured in real time. I recorded every word. The old order, built on efficiency and fear, was cracking along moral fault lines. Mara stood still through it all. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. She only waited until the uproar subsided. This isn't rebellion, she said softly. It's a reminder. Protection is not permission. Retribution is not indulgence. We act when no one else will. Her gaze passed over the crowd and, just for a moment, met mine. I felt the weight of it. The precision. It wasn't personal. It was piercing. Like she was measuring whether I still believed in neutrality. The session ended in chaos. Sanctions were confirmed, but half the colonies refused to enforce them. By nightfall, their transmissions had turned into pledges. Humanity stands. We stand with them. I watched from the observation balcony as she left the chamber, her silhouette framed by the blue-white light of the docking corridor. Every step echoed against the steel. The other delegates averted their eyes, as if witnessing something sacred they didn't yet understand. In the days that followed, her speech circulated across every network, at first as scandal, then as sermon. Analysts broke it down into policy, then philosophy. The doctrine of response, a new code written not in law, but in restraint. Protect those who cannot. Punish only with precision. Balance the scale, then walk away. It spread faster than any decree. Armies began adopting it. Civilians quoted it. Even machine intelligences began reprogramming engagement protocols to mimic its logic. The paradox of emotion became algorithm. I thought I was documenting the decay of order. I was wrong. I was watching evolution. Mara Keen hadn't defied the galaxy. She had reminded it of its humanity. And as I closed my report that night, I added one line against every rule of neutrality I had sworn to uphold. If vengeance is chaos, and justice is order, then humanity has discovered the space between, the equilibrium of mercy and fire. I looked out the viewport at the endless dark between the stars. For the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt measured. They came without warning. 12,000 ships, each one blind, perfect, and empty. The Council called them autonomous peace enforcers. In truth, they were executioners without heartbeat or hesitation, algorithms given the mandate to erase a species that had become inconveniently moral. They struck at dawn, though dawn is a relative term in the void. I was stationed aboard the Horizon Verge, humanity's last command carrier, when the alerts ignited the hull. Red sigils crawled across every screen. Mara Keen was already on the deck, hair-bound, uniform plain. The scars of Helios 9 still marked her sleeves. "Status," she said. "Confirmed hostiles, 12,000 vessels," replied the navigator. "Automated signatures. No life signs, The crew waited for orders that sounded like surrender. Instead, Mara studied the tactical feed, a lattice of red dots swallowing the stars. Her expression didn't change. "Then it's not war," she murmured. "It's maintenance." They called the operation Mirror Shot. Every human ship, 1,000 in all, was permitted to fire exactly once. Ammunition limited, energy reserves restricted, humanity's survival reduced to geometry and faith. The galaxy watched, predicting annihilation within the hour. I watched her instead. She moved between stations, calm as if conducting an orchestra. "Align the grid," she said. No noise, no panic. We shoot once and never miss. Outside, the void turned white with approaching fire. Enemy drones advanced in silent formation, algorithms humming with confidence. No screams, no threats, only the cold music of inevitability. "Targets?" someone asked. "All of them," she replied. She raised her hand. On my mark, there was no countdown, only breath, then light. Thousands of human weapons discharged in perfect synchrony. Not a barrage, but a chord. Harmonized trajectories bending through the gravity wells of shattered moons, arcing along invisible paths calculated not by machines, but by her mind. The first wave of enemy missiles collided mid-space, detonating like falling stars. The second wave curved into their own formation. Feedback interference exploited, mirrored, returned. Every detonation bloomed exactly where it would cause the next. A chain reaction of impossible precision. The enemy systems began to glitch. Their predictive models, flawless in isolation, collapsed under paradox. Probability dissolved. The battlefield became poetry. Motion shaped by intuition, guided by something the algorithms could not name. I remember the feed, silent except for the tremor of sensor overloads. "Mara," the comms officer whispered. "Our firing solutions are decaying. What now?" She didn't look away from the viewport. "Then stop looking," she said. "Feel the rhythm. The enemy doesn't breathe. We do." She began calling coordinates faster than the machines could update. Her voice became metronome and compass. "Delta line converge 2 degrees. Adjust plasma delay. Half second. Don't waste. Make every shot mean something. Every word a pulse. Every command, deliberate mercy wrapped in lethality." Outside, the impossible unfolded. Human fire meeting mechanical precision and reshaping it. Drones spiraled out of alignment, colliding with each other as their shared logic broke apart. The Council's fleets turned on themselves, mirrors reflecting mirrors until the image burned away. By the 43rd minute, silence overtook the comms. Only drifting light remained. 12,000 to 1, and only one side remembered restraint. When it ended, no one cheered. Not on the verge, not across the fleet. Victory had come too cleanly to celebrate. The wreckage glimmered across the dark, debris spinning like constellations newly born. She stood by the viewport, hands clasped behind her back, eyes reflecting the fading flashes. "Count our dead," she ordered. "None," I said. "Not one casualty." "Good," she whispered. Then it was precise. I thought she would smile. She didn't. Instead, she reached for the transmitter, her tone level, her words slow enough for every recorder to catch. "Let them study this," she said. "Accuracy isn't the aim. It's the intent behind it." Transmission sent. Fleet-wide silence. Later, analysts would call mirror shot statistically impossible. Philosophers would call it divine restraint. Soldiers, though, they called it what it was. Retribution, measured to the atom. As the debris drifted past, I found myself writing notes I could never publish. "They fought like mirrors," I wrote, but one side reflected conscience. Hours later, when the lights dimmed and the fleet began its long return, I saw her standing alone. She looked not victorious but burdened, like someone who had rewritten a law and now had to live under it. I asked quietly, "Did you expect this outcome?" Her eyes met mine, calm as starlight. "Expectations are guesses," she said. "I deal in precision." And with that, she walked away, leaving only silence behind. That night, the galaxies rewrote their doctrines. The machines revised their threat models. And I, an observer, sworn to neutrality, recorded history's simplest paradox. Humanity had learned to strike without hatred, to destroy without cruelty, to protect without permission. Retribution had ceased to be punishment. It had become principle. Years passed differently when you're living in the shadow of a single shot. I am older now. The tremor in my hands no longer comes from fear, but from memory. I teach at the Galactic War Academy, what was once the Council's bastion of mechanical doctrine. Now it bears a new motto above its gates. Protect. Respond. Remember. The words of Lieutenant Mara Keene. Every cadet learns her name before they learn to hold a weapon. Every empire sends its officers here to study the doctrine of response, not for tactics but for restraint. They call it the human code. What began as rebellion has become curriculum. I start each lecture the same way. I show them the recording, the moment when precision became something greater than aim. Her bolt splitting another mid-flight, silence across 12 systems, the breath of disbelief turning into reverence. They watch without blinking. Some whisper, some cry, none laugh. In the museum annex beside the academy, her rifle rests under glass, carbon-scored, handle worn smooth. The inscription at the base reads, "Every shot is a question, every answer permanent." Visitors stand in silence before it, as if the weapon still hums with residual purpose. I've learned something they never teach in statistics. Precision isn't about accuracy. It's about intent. The distance between pull and consequence measured not in meters, but in morality. Humanity taught the galaxy that day what machines never could. That perfection without conscience is just error multiplied. Sometimes, at night, I walk the ranges beyond the academy. The wind there sounds like breath between stars. I tell the cadets it's imagination, but part of me wonders. Stories say she's out there still, wandering the uncharted belts, training those who believe accuracy ends at the target. I've read the reports, sightings of a woman in an old flight suit, moving through dust and silence, drawing only when the balance demands it. No one's ever caught her. No one should. Legends aren't meant to be cornered. In my final lecture each term, I ask my students a question. What does it mean to aim? They answer in unison now, voices young but certain. To know why you pull the trigger. That, more than any fleet or empire, is her victory. When I end the class, I turn off the holo and face the quiet room. The screens fade, but her shadow remains, steady as a heartbeat. I used to think I was chronicling an anomaly, a mathematical impossibility. But I see it clearly now. Mara Keene didn't just redefine accuracy. She recalibrated civilization. The galaxy still trembles, not from fear, but from recognition, because somewhere in the vast between-stars silence, a human once looked at perfection and said, "That's not enough." And for the first time in our history, precision found its conscience.